Another southern city surrounded. Water, food and the power cut off. These people made it to the relative safety of Donetsk, 2 hours to the north.
We were shelled. The house is destroyed. Husband is dead. They couldn't get his body out for 3 days. When we were evacuated, it took 3 days. The lads that led us out promised to bury him and would later tell me where. My child is on the other side of the city. I know nothing about her. Is she even alive?
With the water cut off in Mariupol, the Ukrainian president says a child has died there due to dehydration. It is desperate.
We heard a lot of promises, in particular about humanitarian corridors for our people in Mariupol, but all those humanitarian corridor arrangements did not work. We don't have any more time to wait. People in Mariupol have no time to wait. The occupiers want us to die. We don't want our people to die.
The road out of the eastern city of Sumy has opened up for some, but condemnation of Russia grows by the day. Inside the Kremlin, President Putin knows that the sanctions are biting at home, and he needs his people on side.
I'd like to address the mothers, wives, sisters, brides and girlfriends of our soldiers and officers who are in battle now to defend Russia as part of the special military operation. I know how worried you are for your loved ones. You can be proud of them, just as the whole country is proud and feels for them.
2 million people have now left Ukraine. This is what war in Europe looks like. The turmoil is immense. It's only 13 days since Russia invaded. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Well, let's take a look then at the latest on the ground for you. And Ukraine says the Russian advance has slowed, but heavy missile and artillery strikes continue on city centres and civilian infrastructure. The capital, Kiev, and other targets in the centre and east of the country were hit during the night. Local authorities report at least 21 civilians, including 2 children, were killed in an airstrike on a residential street of Sumy last night. Russia promised a ceasefire from this morning to allow civilians to flee to safety from these 5 cities, including Sumy. Local officials there have reported that the ceasefire has held, and hundreds of civilians have been evacuated towards Poltava in the centre of the country. And Ukraine claims a senior Russian general was killed yesterday near Kharkiv. They put Russian military casualties at more than 12,000 so far. Well, these are the latest pictures from the city of Okturka, which is less than 70 miles away from Kharkiv. Sky News has verified and located this video to the city centre. Well, as you can see, it shows the devastation in the city that has been the victim of heavy Russian shelling. And these pictures have been released in the past few minutes by President Zelensky, showing him walking on the streets of Kiev during the daytime. During the short video, he reassures his audience that everything will be fine and Ukraine will win the war against Russia. Well, Deborah Haynes joins me now from the train station in the Ukrainian city of Lviv. Deborah, tell us about the scene there. What are you seeing?
It's a desperate scenes, really, of people fleeing there. This is the station behind me. You can see people moving in there over the past sort of hour or so since we've been here. There've been long queues of people waiting outside. One group that we saw said they've been waiting for about 3 hours, and then when a train comes, the train's going to Poland, they get moved inside and then more people arrive. And if you can see people behind me, and if I sort of pan around, you can see that back away from the station, there's basically like large encampments that have been kind of set up with people, volunteers, setting up like sort of little fires. There's big metal dustbins you can see over here, with some warmth giving, because it's really cold here as well. And then tents and encampments where you've got volunteers giving out food to people, warm drinks, I saw people handing out blankets as well. The people that we've spoken to, they've come from across the country. We've spoken to a lot of families that come from Kharkiv in the east. One lady, she was here with a 3-year-old daughter and was saying to me over the past sort of 6 or 7 days they'd been living in the basement. She described sort of rocket fire outside, tanks, soldiers, her daughter really scared, and they decided to move here. They've just gone in to get the train to Poland. Another lady that we spoke to, she's a dancer from Kiev. She was saying to me she'd just arrived here today. She said it was kind of like, it felt like a glass of water where you have a balance of how much you can tolerate of that water until it gets to a certain level and then it overspills and you have to leave. And she described that the daily bombardments around her neighbourhood outside Kiev had just reached such a level that she thought today she was going to have to leave. She did. And then just finally another family that we spoke to, it was a mum with three girls, a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and she said that her husband actually had told her to take their children and leave, saying it was really important to look after the children because they're the future. But she was really distraught to have left her husband behind. He's still working, and she said that he would be helping with the sort of the defence forces. They're from just around a city called Dnipro, which is in the south central part of Ukraine. And this woman with her 3 children, very upset. She too was waiting to get on a train. She was actually waiting to meet with some family, and then she was going to be travelling over the border too to Poland. So literally every single family, every single person here has been wrenched from their lives. They're all so emotional and frightened about the future, and everybody has a terrible story that's unimaginable to hear, and yet this is what's happening right now in this country. It's awful.
Deborah, Security and Defence Editor, live from the train station at Lviv. Thanks very much indeed. Well, the impact of the war in Ukraine has continued to affect people trying to leave the country, as we just saw there in Lviv. Natalia Bilik-Plum is from Ukraine but now lives in Surrey. Her mother tried to go to Lviv to arrange her visa for the UK, but has said the process is simply too complicated to leave.
So since we've filled an application form on a Friday for my mom and all my family, Visa Centre Lviv suddenly announced on Saturday that they were open, and then in the evening they announced they're closed. Then on Sunday again they announced they're open. So my mom made her way to Lviv, and then to hear in the evening and on the Sunday they shut again. But we still didn't believe it. We thought we'll still go and check. So she's a disabled woman who struggles to walk, made her way there, just only be told it's been shut, and she's been told that the British Embassy came in and took the equipment away to do the biometrics, and then she had to go and travel abroad and find her way abroad and try to get to visa centres in Europe. And then if she didn't need to travel, she's disabled who struggles to walk and even stand, she'll have to travel with her grandchildren and wait 2 or 3 days at the border and then make her way to the visa centre where you're not even guaranteed to get in on one day. So it means maybe a week or 2 weeks just waiting and trying to get into embassy. There's so many people applied, and only you can get, I don't know, 100 appointments in a day. So imagine the queues and imagine the people frustration and anger trying. British government says they're going to help, and then you faced with this problem. Apart from everything else, your home and everything else you lost. It just feels really, really hard and not fair, because I can't understand why people have to submit fingerprints if they've been here before. They'll be checked when they arrive here. Why can you just skip this process and just let us submit the application form, let us submit the paperwork online, and then you can have a look and check everything. Especially, my mum used to travel here all the time, and her visa just went out, so she can't come in right now. But they've been here before, and she's been travelling here since I lived here for the last 17 years. And she never broke any rules, any law.
A tough experience everyone is going through right now. While here, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has said that a pop-up processing centre will open in Lille in France for Ukrainian refugees wanting to come to the UK. Let's bring in political correspondent Kate McCann. She's live in Westminster for us today. So some movement now, finally, Kate, as far as the refugee situation is concerned, and this pop-up visa centre being set up.
Yes, that's right. The pop-up centre will be set up in Lille. That's around 75 miles away from Calais, where we understand there were around 600 Ukrainian migrants, refugees, wanting to get into the United Kingdom. Now, there had been some confusion overnight about when the government was setting this new processing centre up and exactly where it would be. We still don't have a formal location in Lille or a date for when it will be up and running. The understanding is that the Home Office had been hesitant, had been hesitant to direct people to Lille before they have this centre up and running because they know the pressure it will be under. There are many, many thousands of applications of Ukrainians who want to come into the United Kingdom already. Around 500 so far have been accepted. But there is pressure not just on those processing centres where biometric data is gathered. And you just heard there about the confusion around why that is being collected. The UK government is saying that there are security reasons for that. In fact, a minister in the House of Commons just a short while ago said that they had already had examples of people turning up at borders trying to say that they were Ukrainian, trying to get into the United Kingdom. So the government believes it's important to keep those security checks in place, but they do slow this process down. And the pressure is not just on those visa application centres in countries like France, but also in Poland, where over 1 million now refugees have crossed into Poland from Ukraine, trying to make that onward journey. I've just been speaking to someone in one of those centres in Poland who described the situation on the ground there as chaotic, that there were over 100 people currently waiting in the centre to be processed with no idea of a time for an appointment. The computer system is down. There is no formal information being given out by the handful of staff there who themselves don't seem to understand the process or know exactly what's going to happen next. There are elderly people, there are children there waiting, there are not enough chairs, there's no food, it's very cold. This situation is not working as the Home Office would hope that it is, and there is a real mood of frustration actually in the House of Commons now for an urgent question to the Home Office about how to improve it. Across the House, from Labour MPs, from Conservatives, saying this is not good enough. We can see these people, they are in desperate need. Why are we not doing more quickly? So those questions persist for the Home Secretary, and they're coming from Labour too. The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, had this to say just a short time ago.
Yesterday, the Home Secretary told the House twice that a visa centre en route to Calais has now been set up, but it still doesn't exist. The Foreign Secretary just said it might be in Lille, over nearly 75 miles from Calais. The Home Office said this morning that no decision had been taken. Well, which is it? Has it? Where is it? Can people get there yet?
And Kate, while the refugee crisis is under discussion, the Prime Minister's been meeting with the so-called Visegrad 4, and this evening an historic event in the Houses of Parliament. Prime Minister Vladimir Zelensky is due to address the House of Commons.
Yes, that address in the Commons at 5 o'clock this afternoon will be groundbreaking. It's never happened before. Those who speak in the Commons have always been MPs up until this point, so Mr. Zelensky's address will be a landmark moment. Huge screens have been erected in the Commons and there will be simultaneous translation for MPs to hear him speak, and I don't expect that it will be a comfortable listen. While the UK has provided significant amounts of military support and is doing increasing amounts of work on the humanitarian side, I think it's fair to say that the Ukrainian government is frustrated that there is not a no-fly zone. There is pressure on Boris Johnson to instigate that and to go further on the issue of planes, potentially from Poland, to assist the Ukrainians in their air defence system. Now, that is a decision for the Polish government. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace this morning said he would support Poland whatever decision they made, but it is complicated. It would potentially be an escalation in the eyes of Russia, which could cause some difficulties for Poland itself. But the Prime Minister, as you say, meeting with that group from the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland and Hungary today. Those meetings focused on what more can be done on the humanitarian side, and we've been talking about the visa situation. But there is now a real pressing need to ensure that humanitarian corridors are set up, that aid is in the right place, and also that countries like the UK are supporting Poland, who are seeing the brunt of those huge number of people fleeing over the border.
Kate, thanks very much indeed for keeping us up to date on what's happening in Westminster. Well, breaking news, the Queen has held 2 virtual audiences today at Windsor Castle. She greeted the High Commissioner of India and the Ambassador of Armenia, who spoke to her via video link from Buckingham Palace. Well, it follows her in-person meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yesterday, the first since she was diagnosed with COVID last month.
Queen died.
Well, let's take you back to the situation with refugees fleeing Ukraine. Sky's Ashna Harinag is in Calais, where many refugees trying to get to the UK remain stranded, and she sent us this latest.
I mean, even just to find this particular centre that's been put up, when I say centre though, that is quite an exaggeration. It is simply a table for people to come and get leaflets and information over the next steps. People are being advised, if they come to Calais, that actually you've got to travel back in the direction they came from. You've got to go to a visa application centre in Brussels or Paris. There is some swirling suggestions that Lille might be a temporary facility that might be put up, but there is no suggestion that Calais is to get any form of application centre for these people that have had such a traumatic journey to get to this point. Now, either these people are wanting to go to the UK to seek sanctuary, or they know someone that lives there, they've got some form of relative, and perhaps they've got some connection which means that they're able to be fast-tracked for a visa, except there is so much paperwork to do. Now, for any British person, it is complicated, but for people that perhaps have English as a second language, it is even more strenuous and stressful to do. One charity that's helping people here in Calais is Care for Calais. They've got so much experience helping refugees. We spoke to Claire Mosley, the founder of that charity, just an hour ago.
140 people stayed here last night. They confirmed that for me, and I know that some of them have gone to Paris. They're being sent to Paris. Some of them have got interviews there, but a lot of them haven't, and my concern is that there's nobody there to help them, because we turned up here to help them, but there was nobody else. I'm not sure there's anybody in Paris, and if you don't speak English, how are you going to fill in these forms? They're very tired. They've had a very adrenaline-filled few weeks. They are scared for their relatives.